I found out my wife was cheating with M. It was my brother. He attacked me when I exposed them, so I had him arrested and filed for divorce. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. So, I've been hitched to Molly for about 4 years now, and we've actually been together for 6. Until a couple of months ago, I thought we were doing pretty well. We had our share of little fights like any couple, but nothing major. We had our cozy little routine. She'd get home from her accounting job around 6 p.m., we'd have dinner, binge some Netflix, just your typical, comfy married life, which I really dug. It felt secure, and I assumed she was feeling the same. But then things started shifting. At first, I chalked it up to me being my usual overthinking self. Molly always lovingly teased me about it, calling me her little worrier and calming me down with a forehead kiss whenever I got anxious. Things started getting weird though. She began working late here and there, and instead of coming home totally worn out, she seemed strangely pepped up, like she was mentally buzzing. She also started taking her phone everywhere, even the bathroom, which was new because she used to just leave it charging on the kitchen counter until morning. I remember one Tuesday when she came home close to 9 p.m., which was odd because Tuesdays were typically slow at her firm. She claimed they had to work on some big clients' books and it was all hands on deck. But here's the thing, her firm is tiny, just about 6 folks. I've met them at parties, and none seemed like the type to stay late unless it was a total crisis. I asked who the client was, and she hesitated before mentioning a manufacturing company I'd never heard of. When I casually quizzed her about what they made, she vaguely said equipment and quickly shifted the topic, asking me about my day and dinner plans. That's when the alarm bells started going off in my head, but I didn't want to be that paranoid husband who questions his wife's every move. Her late nights became more frequent, and she started being super secretive with her phone calls, often retreating to another room and speaking softly. When I'd pop in, she'd hastily end the call. This bugged me because we'd always been pretty open about our phones. Not that we snooped through each other's stuff, but if one of our phones rang and the other was closer, no big deal, we'd just answer it. Suddenly, she was treating hers like it held state secrets, even taking it into the shower and keeping it under her pillow. The way she looked at me, or avoided looking at me, changed too. During dinner, she'd just zone out and, when I asked what was up, she'd say work stuff or nothing important. But her eyes seemed distant, like she was a million miles away. The intimacy faded too, which was a huge red flag because she usually had the higher sex drive. Attempts to get close were met with her saying she was too exhausted or stressed. I didn't want to push, but weeks went by, and when I tried to talk about it, she acted like I was out of line. I started piecing together her schedule, noticing those late nights were consistently on Tuesdays and Thursdays, along with some random days. She began leaving earlier, claiming she wanted to start her day early, which was odd since her office didn't open until 9 a.m. and she was out the door by 7:30. One Thursday evening, I swung by her office around 7 p.m., curious to see if anyone else was working late. The lot was empty except for the security guard's car. The place was dark. Either she was lying, or they were running a night shift for vampires. I spent about 20 minutes sitting in my car, trying to digest this. I felt sick knowing she was lying but clueless about what she was really up to. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't seen the empty parking lot, but I couldn't unsee it. When she came home around 9:30 that night, I asked about her day. She said it was the usual, really draining. I just acknowledged it, all while feeling like my heart was about to jump out of my chest because there she was, lying so easily. I started checking her stories more closely. When she said she was having lunch with her coworker Jenny, I'd ask about it later, and her tales didn't match up. Like, she'd claim they went to an Italian place, then mention having sushi. Or she'd say Jenny was having a hard time with her divorce, even though last time she talked about Jenny, she was happily married. The big wake-up call was the burner phone. I'm still not sure if she wanted me to find it or just slipped up. One Tuesday night, after another late arrival, she headed straight for the shower, leaving her purse behind. Her usual phone was charging, but curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked into her purse. There it was, a cheap, secret phone. My hands shook as I opened it, finding text after text from someone tagged as M. As I read through them, standing alone in the kitchen with the shower running upstairs, my world came crashing down. The texts were super flirty, talking about meetups and how they couldn't wait to see each other, even reminiscing about awesome nights they'd spent together. There was also chatter about sneaking around and ensuring nobody found out. The part that really gutted me? They mentioned our home, the view from our bedroom window, how comfy our couch was. This person had been in my house, possibly in our bed, while I was none the wiser. Molly had invited them into our space, and they'd laughed about it. I snapped photos of the messages with my phone because I knew confronting her would just lead to a denial. So I found this burner phone hidden in the house, and I was just sitting at the kitchen table trying to wrap my head around what I'd just uncovered. Meanwhile, she was in the shower singing happily, and it made me want to puke. She eventually came downstairs, all casual in her robe with a towel on her head, kissed me like nothing was wrong, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I just looked at her and said, "We need to talk." She tensed up, like she had a pretty good idea what was coming. I told her I found the phone and knew about her cheating. I wanted to know who M was and how long this had been going on. Instead of denying it or freaking out, she just looked at me all cold and said I had it wrong and was jumping to conclusions. I showed her the photos of the messages, and she turned pale. But then she got mad at me for snooping through her stuff and said I'd violated her privacy. I'm sitting there thinking, are you for real? You're mad at me for finding out you're cheating? She kept saying I didn't get it, that it wasn't simple, and there were things about our marriage I didn't see. I asked what the hell that was supposed to mean because I thought things were fine until all this sneaking around. She said I was naive to think that, claiming she'd been unhappy for ages but didn't know how to tell me. What really ticked me off was how she talked like that justified her cheating. Like, really? You couldn't talk to me, go to counseling, or just leave? I told her that, and she rolled her eyes, saying I wouldn't have listened anyway, which just made me angrier because she never even tried. When I asked again who M was, she said it didn't matter and it was over. But I knew she was lying because some messages were from the same day. I told her to call this person and end it in front of me, and that's when she lost it, yelling about how controlling I was and feeling suffocated in our marriage. I thought, if you're suffocating, why not just leave instead of cheating and lying? But instead, I asked if she wanted a divorce because I wasn't staying in a marriage with someone who was unfaithful. She said maybe that would be for the best, grabbed the burner phone, and went upstairs. I could hear her talking to someone but couldn't make out the words. I was left sitting there, thinking about how my marriage was falling apart and how I'd have to deal with telling people, lawyers, and dividing our stuff. Mostly, I felt empty. Then anger hit me because she was probably upstairs talking to her affair partner while I dealt with the fallout. I still didn't know who this person was, and for some reason, that drove me nuts. I felt like I deserved to know who helped mess up my marriage. I'd had this nagging feeling for weeks that something was familiar about all this, like I'd seen signs before but couldn't pinpoint them. Some of the messages talked about things that felt like the person knew me or things about me, which was creepy and confusing. Molly came back down an hour later, saying she was staying at her sister's for a few days while we figured things out, and I said fine because I needed space to think. But before she left, I asked again who her affair buddy was, and she just said it didn't matter and I needed to let it go. I couldn't let it go, so after she left, I started looking through everything, trying to figure out who M could be. I checked credit card statements and found charges at restaurants on nights she claimed to work late. Then I found something that made my blood run cold, a receipt for a men's watch, $300, from 2 weeks ago. Molly never mentioned buying a gift for anyone. I started thinking about who she might be buying expensive gifts for. So I set up a small hidden camera in our living room. I know it sounds nuts, but I felt like I was losing my mind not knowing, and I needed proof. Sure enough, 5 days later while I was at work, the camera picked up Molly coming home with someone. When I watched the footage that night, my heart sank. It was my brother Marcus, my older brother, my childhood hero, my best friend who'd been in my wedding and talked about how happy he was for us. I couldn't believe it. I watched them come into the house together, kiss in the living room, and head upstairs to my bedroom. My brother, who I talked to all the time and trusted with everything, was sleeping with my wife. Suddenly, everything made sense. Those messages that referenced details about me and my schedule. Why Molly seemed to know when I'd be out. Marcus knew all my routines, my late nights, my gym visits, because I told him everything. They'd probably been planning this for months, finding ways to be alone together. I thought about all the times Marcus had come over when Molly was home alone and the times he'd offer to help when I was busy. The worst was remembering how supportive Marcus was when I voiced doubts about Molly, telling me I was overthinking it and that all marriages have rough patches. He was gaslighting me while cheating with my wife. I spent that whole night just in the living room, staring at the spot where they kissed, thinking about all those family dinners and holidays when they knew what was going on but pretended everything was fine. I thought about how they probably talked about me, maybe even laughed at how clueless I was. By morning, I knew I had to confront them. I called Molly and told her to come home because we needed to finish our talk. I didn't mention that I knew about Marcus because I wanted to see if she'd finally be honest. I also texted Marcus, saying I needed to talk. Molly got there first, looking nervous, asking why I insisted she come and if I'd gone through her stuff again. I just said I knew who M was and asked her to admit it. She got that same cold look and said she wasn't playing games. Then Marcus showed up. You wouldn't believe the scene that went down at my place. I'll never forget the look on Marcus's face when he walked in and saw Molly standing there. It was like everything clicked for him that something was really wrong. He tried to play it cool, asking what was up and if everything was okay, but his eyes totally gave away that he was freaking out. I just looked at both of them, right there in my living room, and said, "Look, I know you two are sleeping together. I've got proof, so either fess up or get out of my house right now." Molly started to say something, but Marcus jumped in, trying to smooth things over, saying, "Hey, let's just calm down and talk about this like adults." That's when I just lost it because here he was, still trying to manipulate me like he hadn't just been totally busted, still trying to make it seem like I was overreacting. I told him he was a jerk for hooking up with my wife and that I didn't want to see either of them ever again. Marcus looked like I'd just slapped him, then had the nerve to call me dramatic, saying things weren't as simple as I was making them out to be. So I hit him with, "Oh really? Please explain to me how sleeping with your brother's wife is complicated because clearly, I'm too dumb to get it." Molly jumped in to say they didn't mean for it to happen and they just couldn't control their feelings. I just started laughing. It was the most ridiculous excuse I'd ever heard. Like, seriously, they're acting like they were helpless victims of their own emotions instead of two grown-ups who made terrible choices. I told them to get out, and Marcus insisted we needed to talk about this like a family. And I was like, "We're not a family anymore, thanks to you two." Then Marcus got all aggressive, stepping closer and telling me I needed to watch my mouth and show some respect. Respect? After what he did? I told him to back off before I did something we'd both regret. But instead, he got right in my face, calling me a drama queen and saying maybe if I'd been a better husband, Molly wouldn't have strayed. Then he pushed me, and I stumbled into the coffee table, so I pushed him back. Molly was yelling at us to stop, and Marcus said it started it, while I was yelling at them to get out of my house. Marcus grabbed me by the shirt, slammed me against the wall, and there I was, smelling his cologne and seeing the watch Molly bought him on his wrist. Something just snapped in me. I started swinging back, trying to get him off me. He was bigger, but I was fueled by pure rage. We ended up on the floor, him on top of me, punching my face and ribs, while Molly screamed at us to stop. The whole time he was hitting me, he was spewing stuff like, "This is what you get for being such an ass, you brought this on yourself." I managed to escape to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, not to stab him, but to make him back off. When he saw the knife, he finally stopped coming at me. But then he started saying I was crazy and dangerous and threatened to call the cops on me. So there I was, bleeding and holding a knife in my own kitchen while my cheating wife and brother acted like I was the problem. That's when I really realized how messed up everything had become. I put the knife down and told them to get out, saying I was filing for divorce and never wanted to see them again. Marcus claimed I was making a huge mistake and that family was more important than this mess. I replied, "You should have thought about that before you wrecked mine." They finally left, but not before Molly said she'd be back for her stuff and that I better not do anything stupid. After they left, I just collapsed on my kitchen floor and cried. My marriage was done, my relationship with my brother was trashed, and it felt like my whole life was a lie. Then it hit me that everything had been recorded on the camera, including Marcus attacking me. I decided right then to press charges. Everyone says I should have just let it go and tried to work it out as a family, but I can't get over the fact that my own brother beat me up while defending his affair with my wife. When I told my parents what happened, they called me vindictive and said I should think about forgiveness and moving forward as a family. But I can't just pretend nothing happened because it did, and it changed everything. I called the cops, showed them the video of Marcus attacking me, and filed charges for assault. I also filed for divorce and demanded everything I could get. I told Molly she could have her stuff, but I wanted her out of my life. Now, my family is furious with me for pressing charges. They're saying I'm tearing the family apart over something that could be worked through. My mom keeps calling, in tears, begging me to drop the charges and go to family therapy, but I don't want to sit in a room discussing my feelings with the very people who betrayed me. Marcus has been calling too, leaving messages apologizing and saying he wants to make things right. But how do you make something like this right? How do you bounce back from sleeping with your brother's wife and then beating him up when he finds out? Molly keeps texting me, trying to explain her side, saying she didn't mean to hurt me, but she loves both of us and can't control her feelings. It just makes me madder because she's still not owning up to her actions, acting like it just happened to her instead of something she chose to do. The court date is next month, and my lawyer says our case is strong with the video evidence, but my family is pushing me to drop it and just move on. I keep questioning if I'm the bad guy for not just letting this go and trying to preserve what's left of our family. Everyone I trusted is telling me I'm wrong, but something inside tells me that what they did is unforgivable and I deserve better than to just get over it. Maybe I'm too close to see things clearly, so I'm hoping to get some perspective from strangers online about whether I'm handling this right or just being vindictive and unable to move on. Update: I didn't expect my post to get this much attention, but thanks to everyone who commented, especially those who said I'm not crazy for feeling like my world got flipped upside down. Reading all your responses helped me realize I'm not overreacting and that what happened was seriously messed up, even if my family doesn't want to admit it. Here's what's happened since I posted. The harassment from my family has only gotten worse. My mom calls me every single day. Imagine this: everyone around you is crying and pleading with you to drop the charges. They're saying Marcus has learned his lesson and blaming you for tearing the family apart over something they claim just needs a bit of time and forgiveness to fix. My dad, who I thought would have my back, told me I'm acting all stubborn and prideful. He even said that a real man wouldn't call the cops on his brother over family issues. Dad suggested I should have just given Marcus a good old beatdown and called it even, like we're living in some Wild West movie where you settle scores with your fists. Then there's my sister, who's the worst. She's calling me selfish, saying I'm prioritizing my own feelings over the family's well-being. She insists that both Molly and Marcus feel bad and are ready to make things right, and I'm the one being unreasonable for not listening. But here's the kicker: they all miss the point. This isn't just about hurt feelings or family drama. Marcus straight up assaulted me. There's a video to prove it. If it had been a stranger in the street, everyone would want him to face the music. But because he's my brother and it happened at home, I'm expected to let it go. And as for Molly and Marcus's so-called mistake, they didn't just trip and fall into bed together by accident. This was a long-running affair, with them sneaking around behind my back, making a series of deliberate choices to betray my trust. I've been crashing at a hotel since everything went down because there's no way I could stay in that house. Molly's been swinging by while I'm at work to grab her stuff, and my neighbor even texted me after spotting Marcus helping her move boxes. It makes me sick to think they're still a thing, probably bad-mouthing me for not accepting their relationship. The divorce is moving forward. My lawyer says it should be straightforward since we don't have kids and most assets are in my name. Molly's not fighting me on anything, which makes me think she feels guilty, or maybe she just wants to get the paperwork over with and be with Marcus without strings attached. I feel so alone because the people who should be supporting me are pushing me to forgive Marcus and Molly. I keep questioning myself, wondering if I'm being too stubborn. But when I watch that video of Marcus hitting me in my own living room while Molly just stands there, I remember how scared and helpless I felt. I can't just brush it off. Marcus could have seriously hurt me, or worse. He only stopped when I grabbed a knife to defend myself. Some folks asked about the burner phone. I handed it to my lawyer as evidence for the divorce. The messages might help my case, but I can't even bring myself to read them, they just hurt too much. Meanwhile, Marcus is spinning his own tale, claiming I attacked him first. But the video shows him shoving me, getting on top of me, and not stopping until I defended myself. And then there's the whole pretending everything was fine thing. Just a couple of months ago, Marcus gave me a birthday card gushing about how glad he is that I'm his brother. All while sleeping with my wife. Molly even planned our anniversary dinner, playing the loving wife, only to run to Marcus the next day. My cousin admitted he always suspected something was off but didn't say a word because he wasn't sure. Great looking out, right? The court date is approaching, and I'm nervous about seeing Marcus and reliving everything publicly. Part of me wants to get it over with, but another part wants him to face real consequences, not just a slap on the wrist. I've been seeing a therapist, who says it's normal for families to pressure victims like this, they'd rather avoid the uncomfortable truth. But this isn't just about an affair anymore. Marcus showed he's willing to get violent to protect his secrets. Realizing that gives me confidence that pursuing charges is the right thing to do. Sorry if this is a bit all over the place, my head's still spinning. Just wanted to say I'm hanging in there and sticking to my guns, even though it feels like the world's ganging up on me. All the support from people online means so much, helping me see that I'm not crazy for standing up for myself. Thanks, and I'll update everyone after the court date. Update 2. So, the court hearing was yesterday, and wow, what a ride. You all have been following along, so here's what went down. Spoiler, things didn't turn out how my family thought they would, and now they're even more upset with me. Marcus showed up with a lawyer, which was a surprise since he'd been acting like it wasn't a big deal and assumed I'd drop the charges. I guess watching the video and seeing how bad it looks made him change his mind. His lawyer tried to paint the whole thing as a family spat that got out of hand, saying Marcus was just defending himself after I supposedly pushed him. But the video clearly shows Marcus was the one escalating things, on top of me throwing punches while I tried to get away, even saying stuff like, "This is what you get." Doesn't sound much like self-defense, does it? The prosecutor did an amazing job breaking down the video, highlighting every chance Marcus had to cool off but didn't. She also pointed out that Marcus is way bigger than me and that my injuries matched someone being attacked by a larger person, not an equal fight. His lawyer tried to bring up the affair, arguing it made me unstable and Marcus was calming me down. So, the judge totally shut things down fast, saying, "Hey, adultery's not a crime, but assault definitely is, and that just because I was an emotional wreck doesn't give Marcus any right to lay a finger on me." The real kicker was when Marcus took the stand. He basically threw Molly under the bus, saying she chased after him and he tried to resist but she was relentless. He even claimed he felt awful about betraying me and didn't know how to handle it. Then he had the audacity to say he came over that day to confess and end the affair, but I confronted them first before he could explain. He made it sound like I was the unreasonable one when really, I had proof from Molly's burner phone showing they were planning to meet up that week. Clearly, ending things wasn't on their agenda. What really got me was when Marcus started crying on the stand, apologizing and saying he never wanted things to get this far. For a split second, I felt bad because he's my brother, and I'd never seen him so upset. But then I remembered him attacking me in my own home, and I was furious all over again. The judge found him guilty of simple assault, gave him 6 months probation, anger management classes, slapped on a restraining order, and now he can't come within 500 feet of me or my property. Plus, there's a fine and court costs, and it's gonna be on his record as a misdemeanor. My family was super mad about the restraining order because now Marcus can't come to family gatherings if I'm there. My mom was even crying in the courthouse, saying I was tearing the family apart, making holidays and birthdays impossible. But honestly, I don't want to be around Marcus right now, and I don't get why they think I should just brush off being assaulted to keep things normal. Like, sorry, Mom, but I'm not passing the mashed potatoes to the guy who beat me. Oh, and the divorce is nearly done. Molly didn't fight it at all, so the whole thing was quick. She's moving in with Marcus, which makes sense since they're supposedly in love or whatever excuse they're using now. She tried talking to me outside the courthouse, saying she knew I probably hated her but hoped one day I'd understand she never meant to hurt me. I just told her, "You lied to my face for months and brought my brother into our bed. What did you think was gonna happen?" She started crying and said she loved Marcus and wanted to build a life with him. Great. I'm thrilled for them. They tore my life apart to find their happiness. It drives me nuts how everyone talks about Marcus and Molly like there's some tragic love story when really, they just chose to sneak around and lie instead of being mature. When I mention that they could have just been honest about their feelings before things got out of hand, people act like I'm naive about love. But I've been in love. I fell for Molly, and I handled it by breaking things off with my ex and pursuing Molly properly because that's how you do it when someone isn't available. My dad called, saying I need to think about the family first and not just my hurt feelings. He said holding grudges makes everyone miserable. I told him, "Dad, I'm not holding a grudge. I'm holding people accountable, and there's a difference, even if you don't see it." He thinks Marcus learned his lesson and says the family needs to heal. But how can we heal when nobody wants to acknowledge what actually went down? They keep pushing forgiveness and moving on, but nobody has apologized correctly or shown they understand why it was messed up. My therapist talks about boundaries and self-respect, and I get that if I just let this go, I'm telling everyone it's okay to treat me like this as long as they cry later. That's not the life I want, always wondering who's lying or hiding secrets. Losing Marcus as my friend is tough, like losing my marriage. He was one of my best friends, and I looked up to him. But I can't separate who I thought he was from who he showed himself to be. People ask if I regret pressing charges or wish I'd handled it differently. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wishes none of this happened, but another part knows that life was built on lies. Now I see the truth about these people, and I can choose my path based on reality, not the fantasy where my wife loved me and my brother had my back. The truth is ugly, but I'd rather know than be played for a fool. I'm planning to move to a new city next month for a fresh start where they don't know where I am. I got a job offer that pays better than my current gig, so that's A+. My lease ends soon, and I can't afford the house without Molly's income, so moving makes sense. I'm kind of excited about leaving everything familiar because maybe that's what I need. My family thinks I'm running away, but I see it as running towards something better, a life where people don't lie or betray me, then expect me to be glad for their apologies. If that makes me the bad guy in their story, then so be it. Thanks for all the support during this mess. You've helped me stay sane when others tried to convince me I was crazy. I'll probably update one last time after I settle in my new place, but right now, it's all about taking things day by day. Final update, I've been in my new city for about 3 weeks now, and I owe you all one last update since you've been following this whole saga. Here's what's up, I love my new job and apartment, and being away from the family drama is exactly what I needed. I can actually sleep without nightmares of finding that burner phone or Marcus attacking me. It's surreal, but I'm finally feeling like myself again, not just this angry, hurt person who couldn't focus on anything else. The city's amazing, too. So, I moved to a bigger place than where I used to live, and it's awesome because there's actually stuff to do around here. Plus, I've met a few cool people at work. It feels kinda weird being in a place where no one knows my backstory or gives me those looks of pity or judgment. It's made me see just how much I needed a fresh start. But here's the wild part, 2 weeks ago, Marcus shows up at my apartment building. Yeah, Marcus. I have no clue how he found out where I live since I didn't give my family my address. There he was in the lobby when I got back from work, and I could tell he'd been waiting around for a bit. My first thought was to call the cops because of the restraining order, but we're in a different state now, so I wasn't sure it still counts. Plus, I was kinda curious about what he had to say. What could be so important that he drove hours to see me? Marcus looked pretty rough. He started talking super fast about how he was sorry, saying he made the biggest mistake of his life and needed forgiveness to move on. I just stood there, listening to him go on about feeling guilty, missing our relationship, and wanting to make things right. But he never actually owned up to what he did. He kept apologizing but didn't explain why it was so messed up. Instead, all he said was how much he loved me and that family is more important than anything. When I asked if he was still with Molly, he said yes but claimed this wasn't about her, it was about us as brothers. I told him straight up, there's no us anymore. He broke that when he hooked up with my wife. Marcus got frustrated and accused me of being stubborn, saying my anger was hurting me more than anyone. He said Molly was miserable with guilt about coming between us and that they'd been in therapy, trying to work through their issues. He thought everyone would be happier if I just forgave them and moved on. That's when it hit me. After everything, the court stuff, the restraining order, me moving away, he still didn't get it. He thought it was about jealousy or my feelings being hurt, not about the complete destruction of trust and everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me. I told Marcus I didn't care about Molly's guilt or their therapy because it didn't change what they did to me or convince me they were any different now. Him showing up at my apartment was just another way he was ignoring my boundaries and not caring about what I needed. Marcus got angry then, saying I was being unreasonable and couldn't just cut off my family over one mistake. I was like, one mistake? You had an affair with my wife for months. You lied to me over and over. Made me doubt myself when I started noticing things, then physically attacked me when I found out. That's not one mistake. That's a whole bunch of bad choices to hurt and betray me. He accused me of twisting things to make them seem worse. He even said if I really cared about family, I'd work through this instead of running away like a kid. I told him to get lost and never to contact me again because I was done hearing him downplay what he did and blame me for not getting over it fast enough. He left, but not before warning I'd regret cutting out my family and that one day I'd realize family is what really matters. Watching him leave, I thought, if this is what family is like, maybe I'm better off without it. The next day, my mom called, crying. She couldn't believe I was so mean to Marcus when he was trying hard to fix things. I told her, Mom, he broke a restraining order to show up uninvited, then got mad when I didn't welcome him. How is that making things right? She said it was just a legal thing and shouldn't apply to family who love each other and want to reconcile. I had to explain that restraining orders exist to protect people from family members who won't respect their boundaries. What Marcus did was exactly why the order was there. Still, she insisted I was being too harsh and that Marcus was suffering too, telling me to think about forgiveness and healing instead of punishment and revenge. I'm so over having this same conversation with people who don't get that it's not about revenge. It's about keeping myself safe from people who can't be trusted. I had to block most of my family from calling and texting because they kept pushing me to reconcile with Marcus and Molly. It sucks because I miss some of them, like my sister and cousins who didn't do anything wrong, but they're so obsessed with keeping the family together they can't see how toxic it's become. My therapist, who I still chat with over video calls, says this happens a lot with families after a big betrayal. Everyone wants things back to normal so bad they push the victim to forgive and forget instead of addressing the real issues. She pointed out that Marcus finding me after I moved showed he was more into easing his own guilt than respecting my need for space. I know some folks might think I'm being too extreme by cutting off my family, but I can't keep having the same fights with people who think I should just get over this betrayal and assault because it's inconvenient for them. Maybe things will change someday, but right now, I'm happier than I've been in months. And I'm not going to apologize for choosing my peace of mind over everyone else's comfort. I spent too many years putting others first, and look where that got me. So, that's where I stand. I'm living life on my terms and not looking back. For the first time since this whole mess started, I feel hopeful about the future. Thanks to everyone who had my back through this. You helped me stay strong when others tried to convince me I was wrong for standing up for myself.